Welcome back to Whatcha Reading Wednesdays. Thanks for tuning in and spending time with us. We're shifting gears a bit today, and we're going to talk about what we're listening to instead of what we're reading. You know, because we can. Let's start with podcasts. What is your favorite podcast?
I don't technically listen to podcasts. My husband does, though, and he has recommended two. One is 85 South. It is actually based off of, the cast of Wildin' Out. I don't know if people watch that. That's on MTV, and now it's on VH1. Comes on Tuesdays. The host of that show is Nick Cannon. Pure comedy. They talk about different things that happen around the world. One of the things being stimulus check that we just got. They talk about survival tips, and they even talk about essential workers. Then there was another one called Secret to Success, and that is by Dr. Eric Thomas. He's really known for success and business and motivational. He's like a really good motivational speaker, and based a lot of his stuff in biblical texts.
Well, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts right now, actually. I will have to say that my favorite is a comedy podcast, and it's called Oh Hello, the Podcast, The Life and Death of Princess Diana, aka Dietown. And it's the two comedians, John Mulaney and Nick Kroll, as their 72-year-old men from New York characters that they've done for years and years and years. And they're bringing guests on and like questioning them about Princess Diana.
Right now, I'm really enjoying a podcast. It's pretty new. It's called Killing Time. And it's a history podcast. It's hosted by an historian, again, out of the UK. They have great voices. Rebecca Rideal, and she just kind of like picks weird moments in history and then grabs some of her historian friends and they talk about it. Little bite-sized chunks, about 20, 25 minutes or so. And if we want to go a little more serious, one of my other interests is death and dying. And there's a really great activist and author named Caitlin Doughty who has one with her coworkers called Death in the Afternoon. It's called Death in the Afternoon. And they just kind of tackle different topics relating to like death, dying, mortuary science.
Focus in Your Eyes, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we're reading that for book club.
Oh, it's a really good one.
Pints and Pages Book Club happening May 11th, Tori.
Yeah.
Oh,
we're
amazing.
Just had to plug that in, y'all.
Yes, by Caitlin Doughty, like Erin just said, meeting on Monday, the 11th. And you can get the ebook on Libby or Overdrive right now. 6:30.
6:30. Okay, well, there you go, everybody.
I do enjoy listening to LeVar Burton Reads, which LeVar Burton, of course, is from Reading Rainbow. And he picks short stories and he reads them. So very enjoyable. The ones I've listened to, I really liked. And I also listened to What Should I Read Next by Anne Bogle. She is a writer and she picks one guest to have on and they talk about what they like to read and then she picks books for this guest.
I picked two as well. The first one I have, I think I've mentioned before, but Brene Brown's new Unlocking Us podcast. Those are pretty long. They're like 80 minutes each.
So one podcast that I listen to like pretty much every week, like when the episodes drop, it's like the only Patreon too that I support and like pay money to every month. It's called True Crime Obsessed. Doesn't get much more on the nose than that. It's two friends who host it, and basically they go and they watch true crime documentaries, and then they'll bring their thoughts and their commentary through the whole thing to the podcast. There's one called Adapted for Your Viewing. It's a brother and sister duo who go and they discuss like popular books or like relevant books or like things that are getting talked about in those books and their movie adaptations and how they hold up and all this. So that's been interesting. And then another one I just discovered last week called Not Your Mother's Romance Book Club, which Arnessa, you might be in too. It's a mother-daughter team, and they read a certain romance, and I think their episodes, as far as I can tell, are bi-weekly. They just go over how steamy it was, and they like to say mom safe if it wasn't very steamy.
Well, like you and almost everyone else in the world, I also enjoy true crime podcasts. But the one I chose that were recommended by my pen pal, the first is called Tales, and that one is just kind of like a retelling of dark folklore and fairy tales from around the world. It's kind of morbid. I like morbid things. And then the second one I haven't checked out yet, but I thought people might be interested in is called By the Book. She said the hosts take a self-help book and read it, and then they follow the advice in the book, and then they talk about how it went.
I like it when someone else does the work for me. If you like folklore and kind of morbid things, have you ever listened to Bone and Sickle?
I have not.
Oh, worth checking out if you can get past the kind of campy framing setup.
I love campy too, so.
Okay, you
right
should check out Bone and Sickle.
You're checking off all the boxes for me. Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you listen to audiobooks? If you do you have any you'd like to recommend?
Yes, I do. I like it when an author, like their actual voice would really like help enhance the book itself. So if I'm going to read like a memoir by a comedian, like the Tina Fey one I listened to, even not comedians who kind of have that funny slant, like Lindy West. I think I listened to The Witches Are Coming. My dad and my aunt got really mad at me because I hadn't read this series before, the James Herriot, All Creatures Great and Small series. We have on Overdrive, and the actor from the original show back in the 80s or 90s is actually the guy they got to narrate it. So it's quasi-biographical. It's a good time. It's very soothing. It's heartwarming.
Yeah, what's really funny is what I really like to listen to is fantasy books, which I don't read ever. Very seldom read, but I love to listen to them. And I don't know if it's because I don't have to worry about pronouncing their names or what it is, but I listen to Terrier by Tamora Pierce, which is really good. And there's a 3-book series on that one. And I also listen to Call the Hawk Down by Maggie Stiefvater, which was really good.
I've only listened to the Harry Potter series by Jim Dale and a few others. I'm open to listening to more audiobooks, but I'm very picky with narrators. Like sometimes I'll start, and if I can't stand the narrator, I stop.
So I do listen to audiobooks. I usually stick to nonfiction just because, like Mary said, it's sometimes people have names that are tough to pronounce. And for me, it's easier to actually like pay attention and like, you know, listen when somebody's reading me these facts instead of me trying to read them. Like Erin said, I do tend to appreciate when a comedian or like somebody like that who is funny has written a book and then narrates the audiobook. Like I read Scrappy Little Nobody by Anna Kendrick, and she reads that one, and it was really good. Just a couple weeks ago, I read Beautiful on the Outside by Adam Rippon, and that one was really good because he reads that one. On the opposite end of the spectrum is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I listened to that audiobook, and she narrates that, and there were, I want to say, a handful of times during it where you could tell she was crying while she was reading. And there was also a handful of times where I was crying listening on Libby, so if you're interested at all. I'm currently listening to The Killer Across the Table, because of course I am, by John E. Douglas. He's the guy who wrote Mindhunter, which is the book that the Netflix show is based off of. And Jonathan Groff narrates Mindhunter. So yeah, if you like Jonathan Groff, you might not like the book, but he's got one of those voices that I could probably listen to all day.
Famous for being that guy from Frozen.
Yes, well, famous for other things. Most people know, the layperson knows Jonathan Groff from Being Kristoff in Frozen, yes.
I normally do it on a road trip, and I haven't really been on a road trip.
Better not have.
I know.
No.
Before, when I was commuting, living back in Virginia, and I was commuting, 3 hours a day to get to and from work, I listened to audiobooks a lot. Now, not so much. My commute's like 6 minutes. I can barely get a song in.
Right.
But when I was, most of my stuff was definitely spiritual based. A lot of nonfiction, and I like it when, especially with spiritual based authors, I like when they narrate their own stuff, because I feel like, if you're telling people how to like follow Christ or anything like that, or, even being motivational, I feel like it's usually a personal story. So I feel hard listening to someone that didn't live that or didn't walk through that themselves personally, or hearing someone else's voice saying that. So Max Lucado, big fan of Priscilla Schreier, and also T.D. Jakes. Those are like my go-tos. Out of 362 books that I read last year, because I told you I was going to tell you, I had really not listened to hardly any audiobooks. That was all me reading them.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I do really like audiobooks. One that I listened to recently was Educated, and that was really good. That's a memoir.
Yeah.
Oh, I just started The Dutch House, narrated by Tom Hanks, and it's really good so far. I can say though, Tori, I relate to you in that I'm better with nonfiction. Like, I can feel 5 minutes go by and then realize I haven't listened to anything with a new fiction book.
The most recent audiobook that I've listened to is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. And I recently learned that Lin-Manuel Miranda narrates the book. And I love him so much. And so I started listening to it immediately. And it was great. It was really well done. The story is about two young Mexican-American kids, and Lynn does the pronunciations very well, and it's very believable.
What do you like about listening that you don't like about reading?
Well, the thing I like about listening is I'm able to do other things while I'm doing so. I definitely like listening to podcasts when I'm doing chores or other menial tasks. Makes it a lot more bearable.
I'm with you, Justine. Like, while I'm just doing something kind of mundane or repetitive.
I listen to them when I'm going to bed, kind of turn the brain off. And then, like you said, anything repetitive, like video game dailies, or, sweeping or cleaning or vacuuming or all that good stuff.
I can't do it when I'm trying to concentrate on something, though. If I'm trying to work something out for work, I can't be listening to anything.
Right.
That's where ASMR rooms come in.
Yeah.
So maybe Erin, you should tell us what a ASMR is, since I haven't done it, and some of our other people maybe haven't either.
I might have to look up what it actually stands for.
Oh, I love ASMR.
What does that mean, Tori?
Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just like white noise.
Okay.
I have one that's like a library at night, where it's like a fire going and like rain outside, and you can hear like pens going, and it's,
Those are like the ASMR rooms. Like, there are like videos that are just like sessions, and they're like tapping and like whispering and stuff. Like I said, it sounds kind of creepy, but it's really relaxing.
One of my friends can't handle like the sound of rain because she thinks it sounds like bacon frying. So it's yeah. It's very safe.
Like, getting popped by bacon grease is not fun.
No.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is a high stakes situation.
That is.
You can fall asleep situation.
Right.
That wraps up this episode of Whatcha Readin' Wednesdays. Thanks again for joining us. As always, let us know if you have specific requests or topic ideas. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Stay well, stay home, and stay curious. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Sorry. The blanket was stuck under my chair.
Well, not one of the people. How can I say that? Because this is about to be a blooper reel for real. Let me get my notes.
Oh God.
That's what it's called?
Yeah, hang on.
Up there in my favorites, and narrates the book. Who I love so much.
Yeah,
Speaking of Jonathan Groff and Hamilton, he's a great narrator, and the stories about a couple of
Tori disappeared on us, like she faded into black.
Yeah,
Fade to
I saw
black.
that.
No, sorry. I didn't know that was gonna happen. I know that was
Looks
gonna
like you're
happen.
sitting
I
in a
like
closet.
went back to look
It's
at
like she literally faded to black. Tori's
No.
disappeared.
She gone.
Like a true crime situation. She just disappeared.
we go. Yeah.
Okay, is it out of everyone's system?
Yes, we're sorry, love. We're sorry.
Aaron's
Are you sure? Is everyone okay? All right.
Yes.
So
Right. Take us out.
Taking them up. Okay. Very well.